Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Solventor podcast. This will be episode 11. It's a great privilege to be joined by Harriet Barnsley. Harriet, can you just start off by telling our listeners why confidence is so important to you and maybe a bit about your story?
Well, I'll do the story first. So I am 29 years old. I live in Birmingham in the UK. When I was 21, the day after I finished my degree in philosophy, I came back to Birmingham and long story short, or quick version, I didn't, it's not a quick version. I woke up 4 weeks later from a coma to find out that I'd been hit by a car at 101 miles an hour and my best friend had been killed next to me and that I would need a wheelchair for life. Confidence has always been important in my life. Like I was confident as a child and other kids didn't really like it. I kind of knew that it wasn't like, I knew what I wanted and I knew who, I didn't know who I was, but I just knew my values and I knew I didn't want to like conform to all the cool kids, and they just bullied the hell out of me for it. It was horrible, but I still stuck to myself. I think I got it from my dad. It's just it's you have to be your own cheerleader, don't you? Like it's so important to just keep going and just give things a try. You know, not even believe that you can do it, just like believe that you can start, and that'll take you further than letting the fear get in the way of you ever getting started.
So, I think it's quite a story. Firstly, what was your initial reaction when you woke up? Were you hit with confusion and like how do you react to news like that?
Yeah, so it's been a bit of a can we swear? It's been a head fuck. Like it was not a bit. It was. So I woke up from a month-long coma to learn that I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is a brain bleed, because we got thrown 50 meters into the park behind the bus stop, and my brain shook about inside my skull and bled and bruised and led to and then I got in an induced coma. And then when I woke up, I forgot everything the day before every single day for 2 weeks, like 51st dates. I think it sounds funny, but none of my family enjoyed that. And then like I didn't really think the world was real. I thought there were actors. I was like, I don't know. I couldn't remember. I'd been to university. I couldn't remember how old I was. I thought I was 17. Like I couldn't remember anything really apart from knowing my immediate family. I just knew that I didn't have the energy. I kept falling out of sleep for ages. It was like a very like I spent 5 months in hospital, but most of the first 3 months was just lying there waiting for my body to like recover, just so not really moving or doing anything. But then I thought of like, so I couldn't remember. I didn't really try and think of like people in my life. You go for your default. So I was like my mum, my dad, and my sister Katie. My sister Katie was born 2 years after me, 3.5 months early, stone cold deaf, kidney failure, learning difficulties, lots of different things. She'll never be independent, and it's a miracle that she's alive. And so she'll never be independent and never get to live her life, or like she wants to have a partner and like a family, and she doesn't have the wherewithal to have that. So she lives with my parents and always will. And I woke up from my coma, I didn't know what happened, just lying there. And I just thought, eventually my thoughts kind of sort of started to form again. And I was like, well, I can tell that I've got the brain power to at least know more than she knows and know that I can live my life regardless. I was terrified that I'd had both my legs lost. I couldn't amputate. I couldn't see my bottom leg, half my body, and I couldn't move. I couldn't ask and I couldn't communicate. But I was like, but either way, I know that I can get better and have it. And just it would be insulting to Katie not to try.
Yeah, I think I've got a family member who passed away a number of years ago, but when she was born, she was meant to only live a few months, and she ended up living to 52, I think it was. Wow. And actually, out of the siblings, she was the most successful, and it was interesting that she sort of powered on through, unmatched disadvantage, really.
I feel like sorry, I feel like disabled people, and like she was born, my sister was born disabled and became disabled. I feel like we just automatically get on with it a lot better. Like we just like, let's like cut the crap and just like work hard with what we've got.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not disabled, and I was in the gym the other day, and I was being my arrogant usual self in the gym, really feeling myself and doing weights or whatever. And I actually looked to the side, and there was this woman in a wheelchair, and she was doing like weights on the cable machine. And suddenly I just got really, really not depressed, but I don't know what the feeling was. It was just like I looked in the mirror. I just stopped looking in the mirror and just got on with what I was doing and thought, yeah, you're not all the shit, Linus. You're just, you're an
Well,
able person, and
you
there's someone else there trying really, really hard. And I don't know.
It made you realize, I suppose. I think ego feels really good, and like when people pick you up, it feels really good, and you pick yourself up, it feels really good. But eventually, it's fine. But if you're doing it to a stage of arrogance and it's a little bit excessive, it's a little bit like a drug. Like it's great to feed into yourself, but I assume that seeing that lady made you check yourself and be like, well, I'm not. It's not all about me. Just we're all getting on with it. Like,
yeah, and I guess it gave me that feeling as well, as like, when you're struggling and when you're hit with adversity, the first thought I always get is of my auntie who was disabled, and thinking, right, yeah, okay, this has happened, but imagine if I was in a wheelchair and I needed 24/7 help. I don't, so get on with it and fucking grow a pair. That's what I say to myself. So I guess, yeah, from that, everyone has their problems, but it's always good sometimes to look to your left and look to your right and realize, yeah, maybe I can deal with this, and maybe I'm actually in not too bad of a position.
yeah, that's why I'm sharing my story, like for several different reasons, just mainly to show that, like, to set an example that you can cope with anything. Like, I've had the worst things possible happen to me in the last 8 years. It's been absolutely hell, but I've managed to cope with it and managed to thrive. And I've had people message me on my blog saying, look, it's inspired me to cope with my trauma and my struggles, and just they don't feel as bad as yours. I don't think it's helpful to compare the levels of the different levels of challenges and the different levels of like trauma, like whatever trauma is or whatever struggle is to each individual is their biggest problem. It's not about, so I don't think it's healthy to look to other people and feel that you're being insensitive because you're moping around when they've got bigger challenges, because that'll just make you feel worse. But I think it's just use it as an example to be like, well, if they're going to try, I'm going to try. Like, use what works for you to build yourself up.
What and this is going to sound completely awful, and I don't mean it to. What advantages or strengths do you feel like, if you could name 2 or 3, that you've got from this experience?
Woke up really blunt. I don't know if I was blunt before. My friends say I was quite blunt. My family say I never was, and maybe I was a different person at university. I'd grown into myself, but it's just given me the whole. I'm like, well, I've gone through the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I'm just going to deal with everything else. It just makes me. I'm just. What was the question? What are the strengths from it?
Yeah, strengths from it. I think blunt can be a strength, by the way. I'm just going to put that out.
Yeah, no, when people won't say how they feel, or someone's upset someone and they won't just let them know, or just, and everything, you can watch it all explode. I'm just like, if people check with me, they're like, oh, I feel like I upset you. I'm sorry, like I've said something insensitive. I'm like, I would have told you if it bothered me, and we would have sorted it out, or I'd have, like, it's, people don't really speak up for themselves, and I love that I get to be so direct, and people just respect it. I thought I was like, I'd speak my mind and think, oh, it's a bit out there, and people be like, yeah, you're right, it's true, like, it's just so freeing. And everyone's like, oh, I wish I could be as direct as you and speak my mind. I'm like, just try it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, it's what people are scared. The drive to always look after my body and my mental health as a main priority, as the top priority, more than I see everyone else kind of puts things that aren't as important, like trying to fit in or trying to socialize or trying to, like, I don't know, promotions are good at work if you get more money, but if that's all you focus on, you need to be good with yourself. But like I have the drive to always exercise regularly, like do things for myself that I know that my body, you know what I'm trying to say? Like it just having the I don't really need to get motivated.
Priority. Make yourself the priority.
Yeah, like I don't need to really motivate myself to do this like good stuff, like eat the healthy food and to resist temptations of takeaways and exercise and just like read a bit and get like, just I know that I've been through so many ups and downs and I know how to look after myself. So I've taken the time to kind of really work it out, and that's like been wonderful. Was there a third one? That was a kind of a big one. Remind me of it again.
Well, I think just coming off one of the points you made, I wanted to talk about mental health. It's something, because obviously this podcast is about confidence, but I've been a bit lacking with not mentioning how I guess mental health and confidence sort of come hand in hand. My opinions on mental health are constantly changing because I'm constantly talking to people that have differing opinions to me. And that also helps me expand my own knowledge, etc., etc. I do think that first question is going to be a bit controversial. Do you think that in this day and age we're putting too much emphasis on mental health, or do you think there's not enough?
I need to also ask you as a side note whether you've had mental health issues after this, but to answer that question, because that's too much. I think it's wonderful that we're in a world where we can now talk about it and it's not getting brushed under the carpet and people can have the support they need. I think people are almost there's a divide, isn't there? It either really helps someone and helps someone thrive and they benefit from it, but lots of people seem to kind of be using it as an excuse to just not really do anything. And like, fine if you're in like the pit of despair. I've been like, I had bipolar lows where I couldn't, like, I would still volunteer and I would still try and do things, but I couldn't function, and that was like a proper mental illness. And like, I'm not saying that the milder ones aren't proper mental illnesses, but I think that people need to be encouraged to remember that they can cope with the challenges.
I mean, yeah, my opinion is basically the exact same as yours. Is I know people that have I know someone that has bipolar, and I know people that have other mental health issues, and then I also know people that just don't cope very well with stress and adversity. They just go, oh, it's because of this and that, and it's like, it's really not. I'm sorry. I've seen many people, and that's not me saying that your problems and your adversities are not bad. That's me saying the way you're dealing with them is incorrect. You can't just put
they're like, it's a bit like a pity party for them, isn't it? It's just I watched them, people just be like, my life's hard, I can't cope, and they list all the things. And I'm like, I don't know what you're doing that for. Like, all of our lives are hard in different ways. There's a divide between people that, I don't know, I get infuriated with the people that just want to repeatedly talk about the same problem over and over and over again. Like, I'm like, talk about it once, like talk about it, get it out of your system, and then move on. Like, it doesn't help. Repeating it just holds them in like the negative headspace.
In limbo almost. It's, I've had conversations with many people, most of which are the target of this podcast, where they're talking about one thing that might have happened 2 years ago, a year ago, an event, and that it's triggered all this and that. And I always try to come in with, I'm sympathetic, not empathetic, because to be empathetic, you have to understand how they feel. Sometimes I might not necessarily understand, but I'm always sympathetic. But, maybe try this and that, or try and implement these things to maybe move you forward. And then you see them 2 weeks later and they're just sitting on the couch saying the same thing again. It's actually painful and sad and very destructive to themselves.
It's very hard to watch, especially having done the work on yourself to like know how to be okay with, like I watch lots of people just not really coping with life for reasons that are just because they've not really put themselves as a priority, and it's so infuriating. Like, so I'm trained to be a counsellor, and I'm writing a book about recovery to help inspire people. But then occasionally you meet someone when people talk to you and they're like, oh, okay, I can cope with it. Like, I understand that you need to have a bit of time to check yourself and say this, no, not check. You need to have a little bit of time to let yourself process what's happened. But begging for people to be like, oh, poor you, that's horrendous. Like, no, don't like you go and you stay at home and you rest for like a month. What is that going to do? Like, but there's the clash of, no, not clash, but there's serious mental health issues where you can't function and you have to be put in hospital or really struggle. I don't think it's helpful to tell these people that every day is a new day and you can cope with it, because it's unmanageable and you need medication and professional help. But people are like kind of watching lots of people get this mental health and kind of being like, oh, but I've got things too. Like, it's not, and I don't know.
Everyone starts putting their hands up a bit. I mean, I never talk about my mental health. I make it sort of a rule that I'll talk about it to myself, because that actually helps me. I might have talked about it with, you know, partners in the past, but very, very small amount. For me, I don't think I have. I don't know, because there's so much nowadays. There's so much has been discovered. Who knows? But I don't think I have any mental health issues. I think I can be quite mental, but I don't think I particularly have something that's diagnosable. No.
But you can see yourself almost feeling encouraged to be like, oh gosh, maybe there's something there. Like, I feel like that everyone's got something, you know, like, I don't know, like, I think it's good to admit that if you haven't had serious mental health issues, especially because before I had mental health issues after the crash, I couldn't relate to people's struggles. Like, I had sympathy again. I felt bad for people, but people would tell me these things about their mental health, and I'd be like, I can't. What on earth is that? Then I developed psychosis after the crash, and suddenly people say things. I'm like, God, yeah, I get it, but you can't read about it. You've got to experience it. But I don't think everyone should have to experience it to be able to support people.
Yeah, speaking, we'll definitely come back to that. Your psychosis, I was reading about you, and you were sectioned twice. Would you be all right to talk about that?
Yeah. So, got hit by a car in 2014. Carried on with my physical health. Like, I had lots of surgeries for the years afterwards. I had tried hydrotherapy, focus on that as much as I could. Got to the end of what I thought would be like, you know, I'm still having surgeries, but I reached the end where I could I applied and went back to university at the University of Birmingham to do a master's in the philosophy of health and happiness, which I thought was perfect. Realised that I couldn't keep up with the brain injury and the injuries that I had, and like, being physically disabled, needing a wheelchair and trying to travel around campus was just, especially compared to being able before, was really hard. So I dropped out, developed mental health issues. It got so low that I started and didn't sleep for 8, or I don't sleep if I don't have medication. And I just became convinced that I'd got killed in the crash and that I was actually dead, because no one survived. So you get hit by a car at 40 miles an hour, there's a 90% chance you'll die. I got hit by a car at 101 miles an hour while as a pedestrian and didn't die. So I just said to myself over and over again for 5 years, but I should have died. Like that, and then I got ill and
what does it mean? I've actually interviewed someone who's been sectioned twice before as well, but I actually still don't quite understand what it means to be sectioned.
Okay, so I drove down the motorway and the M40, ran out of petrol, got sat waiting to die, crying, and the police pulled me out of my car, put me in a jail cell overnight because there wasn't a hospital bed available, which was like the worst nightmare in the world. Got brought back to Birmingham, got put in hospital, and it felt like a weird kind of alternative world that I didn't see it, so I was put in hospital with lots of people that were all either were sectioned or had put themselves in, is it committing yourself,
yeah,
and they were all, I don't know, I thought everyone was encouraging each other to, everyone was just wearing their pain on their sleeves, or just showing it the world, and they were all just being like, you know, however mental they felt, they were just being it, and it was a safe space to be yourself. But also, I don't know, I met someone outside the hospital, like the men and women split into two, so I'd go outside and talk to the guys, and after 3 days, he was 34 years old. He was from Jamaica, and he had twins, and he wasn't allowed to see them. After 3 days of talking to him, he asked me to go to CEX, buy him a phone, and then he'd give me an engagement ring on Valentine's Day, and we could get married and be together. And then I realized that maybe this wasn't the best sort of relationship. I don't know. It's like I don't know what the divide is between prison and mental health institutes, because surely everyone in both is mentally ill. Just some.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I took. Yeah.
I guess that's a topic all in itself.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. With regards to the car hit you, you woke up, and all of this has happened to you. What I get, my biggest downfall is I hate things going wrong where I can't trace it back to a mistake I've made. So I hate things happening that are out of my control, that quite possibly I don't understand why they happened. What was that like for you? Because that's literally your exact experience.
So again, like when I woke up and I was lying there, and I kind of figured out slowly what had happened and stuff. I lay there and I thought, before it was confirmed that it was someone else did it to me, I lay there and I was like, I must have done this to myself. I must have. I couldn't comprehend the idea of someone else violating me, but my body and my brain that much. I was like, but I'm in charge of my own life. I'm 20, like, and then I found out I was 21 years old, and I was like, I must have, you know, like ran into the road, like, or done something stupid when I was drunk. And it's just the idea that's just, I still kind of sort of feel like I must, because the idea that someone else has violated my life and my body and my brain that much is so incomprehensible, because, you know, you control your reality. I couldn't, it was, I don't know.
Do you still struggle with that a bit today, or is that something that you've?
And I don't really think about it. People will ask about the driver, and I don't really think, like, people like find out what happened because I use a wheelchair and use crutches, and people always ask. And like, then they start asking about the driver, and I'm like, I don't care about the driver. Like, they killed like my oldest friend. Like, I don't feel like focusing on and made me disabled for life. I don't feel like focusing on them is gonna help me recover. So I just focus on myself instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it just, yeah, it is something that I guess for me, if I've made a mistake that's caused me pain or caused something to happen or go wrong, I don't grieve over it. I just go back and I work out what went wrong. But I guess sometimes the most painful things are the ones that you can't trace back to an action from yourself.
Yeah, it's how do you reconcile that? How do you?
So I'm guessing. Well, I'm not guessing. I'm sure I know that confidence has played a massive part in not only your recovery but forming the person you are today. Do you think that without the confidence and the drive and the resilience that you'd be anywhere near where you are now?
I can't comprehend a life where I don't just, like, I don't know, when I was growing up, my dad was just this like quite quiet, extremely confident man that just worked so hard from absolutely nothing to like built himself this massive business that's done so well, and he's just so disciplined and determined, and exercises still all the time, does his challenges and reads all the time and educates himself. And I've just that set a precedent, and I've just worked that hard. I just, especially as I get older, like as a child, it felt weird to kind of, that doesn't fit into the school playground. It like, so it was, so I thought I was doing something wrong, but I knew it's the whole, like, I listened to my gut, and my gut's always just like, you know, you kind of feel like you kind of know deep down. If I didn't have that confidence, that was your question, like, I feel like it's an active choice. It's a choice
Mm.
every single day. It's a choice with all the decisions. Like, I don't, all of them. Like, I wake up this morning and I was like, oh, I could go back to bed for half an hour and just sleep, or I could get up and I could do some things that would set me in good stead for the day. I'd rather stay in bed, but I'll get up and I feel better for it. Because we make so many little choices throughout the day, and I just, when I'm going around the house, I'm like, I could do that in like 10 minutes. No, I'd rather, if you do things straight away, like rather than have them building up as things that you do, like just do things that like are good for you, like.
And if you had just one final question, if you had a message to give anybody out there really who has something to give but is not confident enough to give it, what would that message be?
Not confident. My general message in life that I always come back to is just to keep going. So like, rather than giving up and throwing it away, or just never getting started, just start going and keep going.
And just before we finish, have you got any questions for me?
Oh, there's loads of things I could ask. How's life?
Oh, it's a great question. The simple ones are often the hardest to answer. Life is fragile, I find, at this age.
Because what made you start the podcast? Like,
well,
no, answer the first question. Sorry.
But yeah, I guess it ties into so life is meant to be full. It's not meant to be bare. It's not meant to be empty. If you're waking up in the day and you have to spend an hour thinking about what you're going to do, there's a problem. If you're waking up in the day and you've got no responsibility, there's a problem. So I realize that life is very difficult and it's not an easy journey. It's not meant to be. And I try my best to relish in its difficulty. So I try to ensure that every day when I wake up, I've negotiated with myself the night before exactly what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it. I'm going to give it my best shot. But of course, when answering the question, how's life, it's tough, but it's a good sort of tough, I would say. And why the podcast? Well, I've just graduated from the University of Exeter in a degree in law. I'm starting a job next month. I had a spare 3 months and I thought, what can I do that is going to benefit others, and what can I do that is hopefully going to develop me as well and improve me as a human being? And I came to this idea. So yeah.
So lots of blank spaces of nothingness. So you like busyness.
Yeah.
So
a bit of a stress merchant. I have to be stressed.
Yeah, I was 21 and then everyone was away going to full-time jobs. I was sitting at home being like, I need to be busy there. I need to start working. I volunteered for loads of different companies. It's the balance, and the balance that I've gone through is the whole good to be busy, important to be able to not be as busy and just be okay with it for variation. The variety is the spice of life. Go through busy periods and a little bit quieter periods without being too scared of the quieter periods.
Yeah, I think it also goes a bit back to the mental health conversation as well. There's a couple of old timers that I've spoken to, and they always say, you know how to solve mental health, make sure you're busy, because then you haven't got time to worry about it. And I don't necessarily agree that we shouldn't be worrying about this at all. Obviously, males, we don't talk about it as much as I know females do. That's a bit of a generalization, but generally it's true. But I think if you do keep yourself busy and you do have a lot going on, you don't have time to sit in those dark rooms of your mind listening to classical music and drinking whiskey and wondering, what am I doing? I think if you're doing something, that will tend not to happen, or happen less at least.
See, sitting in a room drinking whiskey wouldn't, that sounds great to me.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I do that every night. But that's beside the point. I think if you've had a full day of doing something for yourself or maybe for others, whatever it is, as long as you're busy, you're learning and you've got less time to kind of dwell.
Yeah. So, but dwell on what?
Well, you've got.
We don't need, as in, like, I don't have really things to dwell on because I've spent the time working through lots and lots of awful things. I'm not trying to pry into your psyche, but like, people are scared. People are scared to stop. People, especially, yeah. Like,
yeah. I guess part of it is, obviously, I do fear what would happen if I ever did just stop for a second. A small part of me goes, what would happen? But as well, I'm acutely aware that I am a fortunate 21-year-old who needs to get going, because the young years of being in your 20s are the most important, really. If you want to take risks and you want to do things, it's now, not later.
Yeah, no, definitely, actually, yeah. So you've got all the time in the world after like your 20s to start like, okay, I'll sit down, I'll not do much and I'll figure myself out. But like, so weird. Like, I'm 29 and like, I fell down the stairs last year and it took like months for the pain to stop. And like, that would never have happened when I was 21. It just suddenly my body just like stops healing as well. And I'm like, Jesus, it's only going to get worse.
I guess as well, like, even, I've collected a number of, like, life just grinds you down a bit. Like, I've collected a number of injuries over the last 3 years, some of which will never go away. Just from, I've had surfing accidents. I, fractured my ankle doing boxing and skipping and whatnot and all sorts. But
also living your life.
Yeah, but that's, that's a part of it. That's the scars that are left behind from trying new things, I guess. And I don't have any problem with it. I mean, I'm the type of guy, when the doctor says you need to take 3 weeks off, I take 3 days. But, it's one of those things, I guess, through living, you've got to be prepared to take those risks. And yeah, of course, when you get older, some things start to take longer to heal, but you're still active in mind, and you still, at 29, you still got ages and ages of opportunity making years. So
I love your attitude. I'm resisting delving into your psyche. It's interesting, but I'll leave you alone.
A special edition diving into Linus's psyche. I'm sure that'll get quite a few views. But
if you ever running out of content, you know what to come back to.
Yeah, well, that will definitely be on the episode list. But I'd just like to thank you very much for coming on, Harriet. It's been a very interesting episode. And I'd also like to remind my viewers that we are available on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, and all of the above. And finally, give my last message, which is, if not today, then when. Thank you very much, Harriet.
I love it. Thanks for having me.
Love that deep house, love that sound. Top floor with me, whipped and bound. Young models, that's heaven finally found. Bass reverberating through the ground. Got my off-white keys, yeah, I'm a raver. Yeah, shades and a bit of that naughty behaviour. Kissing birds and flapping off their flavour. Yeah, that's right, call me Mr. Raver.